This marks a permanent shift in global trade. Three of the world's largest economies are now aligning against the United States. What follows will redefine prices, markets, and your livelihood. This analysis reveals the truth behind this decisive realignment. We examine why Canada, Mexico, and China united at this pivotal juncture. We identify the industries facing immediate disruption. We also expose the underreported consequences, those poised to impact your finances, employment, and the global economy. Remain with this report to gain a critical new perspective. The data is compelling. Trade barriers are climbing. Integrated supply chains are faltering. Cross-continent shipments now carry severe cost risks. Consumer goods, electronics, automobiles, and staples may all see abrupt inflation. Corporations are urgently recalibrating. Export-linked jobs could disappear. Small enterprises may confront unforeseen strain. International markets face sustained pressure. Ordinary citizens, consumers, workers, households will bear the initial burden. Yet deeper currents exist. Beyond official statements lies a network of obscure treaties and supply pacts. Some were sealed quietly years ago. Others were neglected by mainstream press. Those agreements are now fracturing. Global alliances are realigning. Established trade routes may dissolve. New corridors will form. Certain nations will benefit, others will decline. The resulting shockwaves could fundamentally reorganize worldwide logistics. This segment will piece together the complete mosaic. We will demonstrate how pivotal industries interconnect, how a Canadian tariff cascades to Asian factories, how consumers and cities far removed may confront shortages or inflated costs for essential items. We will assess market reactions globally, how investment capital is being redirected, which economies may buckle, and which may discover unforeseen advantage. Crucially, we will determine what this means for you, your savings, your expenditures, your prospects. You should watch this analysis in full, because these changes are immediate, not abstract. They are occurring now. They will impact you or those you know. Once supply chains reconfigure, a return to the prior norm is impossible. Early understanding permits better preparation. Welcome to this report. To remain informed on global trade, economic trends, and their personal impact, subscribe now. You will receive complete reporting. You will stay ahead of developments, and you will comprehend what truly signifies. A trade war commences when nations impose tariffs on imported goods. These levies often serve as punitive measures or negotiating leverage. They increase import costs, discouraging purchase, while aiming to shield domestic industry and employment. Yet trade wars seldom remain contained. Affected nations typically retaliate, initiating a cycle of escalation. For decades, the United States, Canada, Mexico, and China have been deeply interconnected through commerce. Annual cross-border trade measures in the billions. Factories in Mexico and China produce goods for the U.S. market, while American firms depend on their components and materials. Historic agreements forged predictable rules and stable supply lines. Companies established long-term partnerships. Entire sectors grew reliant on seamless cross-border flow. Consumers enjoyed diverse, affordable products, and businesses could plan with confidence. The dynamic shifted abruptly when the United States levied severe tariffs on key imports from Canada, Mexico, and China. These duties targeted steel, aluminum, automobiles, and agriculture. The impact was instantaneous. Prices began rising. Firms reconsidered supply chains, and trade-dependent industries confronted new obstacles. The penalized nations retaliated with their own tariffs, extending to commonplace American goods, household items, vehicles, select foods. This tit-for-tat dynamic ripples through the global economy, disrupting manufacturing, shipping, and investment. Trade wars breed uncertainty, affecting markets and enterprises beyond the direct participants. Investors may withhold funding, businesses may delay expansion or seek new suppliers, sometimes in distant regions. Minor disruptions in one area can slow production and raise prices elsewhere. Consumers face higher shelf costs, companies struggle to balance ledgers. Over time, such measures can redefine enduring economic relationships, forcing rapid adaptation to a volatile trade landscape. In early 2025, the United States enacted a sweeping 25% tariff on imports from Canada and Mexico. This was a major policy shift targeting steel, aluminum, automobiles, and agriculture. The immediate effect was felt by export-dependent factories and farms. Companies recalibrated costs, adjusted pricing, and rethought logistics. Businesses accustomed to predictable trade faced sudden uncertainty, with consumers ultimately absorbing the ripple effects. Concurrently, the U.S. doubled tariffs on numerous Chinese goods to approximately 20%, impacting electronics, machinery, textiles, and consumer items. This raised expenses for American importers using Chinese components, challenging technology, automotive, and retail sectors to preserve profits and supply efficiency. Multinationals operating across these regions were compelled to reconsider sourcing and production. The U.S. justified these measures, citing national security, immigration, and narcotics enforcement. Officials contended certain imports risked national safety or economic stability. While debated abroad, the tariffs were framed as essential for protecting domestic industry and public welfare. Economists warned that high tariffs and retaliation risk unpredictable disruption. Beyond mere cost, the move signaled a U.S. trade policy pivot, sending a stark message to allies and adversaries. Businesses, investors, and governments worldwide took note as new barriers redrew the map of global commerce. Canada and Mexico, two of America's closest trade partners, responded swiftly. They immediately threatened and then imposed their own tariffs on U.S. goods. Key American exports, agricultural products, vehicles, industrial materials, now face new taxes. This forced U.S. firms to reconsider pricing and supply, with buyers both domestically and abroad beginning to feel the effect. The rapid response demonstrated a readiness to defend economic interests, revealing how deeply intertwined trade can become a point of conflict. Simultaneously, China entered with targeted countermeasures against American exports, including raised tariffs on machinery and consumer electronics. Chinese officials stated these actions were necessary to protect domestic industry and maintain economic balance. By responding strategically, China affirmed it would not be sidelined, asserting its role as a major global player. The combined reaction created a complex tension, a triangle of conflict between the United States, Canada, Mexico, and China. Trade flows, stable for decades, grew uncertain overnight. Businesses across North America and Asia adjusted to rising costs, delayed shipments, and volatile conditions. Governments and corporations explored alternative suppliers and markets. Economists warned of a potential broader slowdown. The entanglement also strained political relations as economic actions carried diplomatic weight. The global trade system, built on cooperation, now navigates a sudden multi-front confrontation with consequences extending worldwide. This conflict touches nearly every major economic sector. Energy markets are affected as tariffs raise fuel costs, impacting industries and consumers. The automobile industry faces disruption as part and vehicle movement incurs delays and added expense. Consumer goods, from electronics to apparel, grow costlier and harder to source. Agriculture suffers via higher tariffs on crops, meat, and dairy. Even electronics, smartphones, computers, and industrial machinery are caught in the crossfire, challenging complex multinational production networks. Economists warn tariffs seldom work as intended. Instead of strengthening domestic industry, they raise business and consumer costs, slow investment, and disrupt whole sectors. Companies expend more on shipping, sourcing, or production adjustments. Costs typically pass to consumers. Global economic growth can slow amid rising uncertainty. Markets may react negatively to unpredictable policy. Investors, manufacturers, and exporters may pause projects or rethink strategy, creating ripples far beyond the initially involved nations. Trade flows may undergo significant shifts. Tariff-affected countries may seek new partners, forging fresh alliances and redirecting supply chains. Factories might relocate to lower barrier regions, shipping routes adapt to avoid cost. These adjustments reshape industries, creating unexpected winners and losers. Once minor nations may gain opportunity, traditional hubs may face setbacks. The impact is not short-term. Supply chains may realign permanently, altering global goods movement and changing the balance of economic power. New tariffs and retaliation are already raising costs across sectors. Electronics, smartphones, laptops, appliances will become more expensive amid higher duties and supply disruption. Automobiles likely see price hikes as tariffed parts are passed to consumers. Even everyday food may grow costly as agricultural trade routes are affected. Families will notice at grocery stores. Businesses using imported materials will struggle with pricing. Uncertainty is another major consequence. Companies may delay or cancel investments due to unpredictable tariffs. Factories could slow production. Some projects may pause indefinitely. Jobs in export-reliant sectors, manufacturing, agriculture, logistics, are at risk. Workers may face layoffs or reduced hours as firms adapt to cost increases and delays. This uncertainty ripples through local economies, affecting services, transport, and retailers. The impact extends beyond directly involved nations. Countries outside the initial conflict feel effects via global supply chains. Shipping delays, higher input costs, and rerouted trade disrupt production continents away. For instance, Asian or European factories supplying North America may need new routes or suppliers, creating a cascading effect. Shipping costs rise, delivery times lengthen, businesses rethink sourcing. These tensions illustrate our connected economy. Disruption in one region affects industries and consumers thousands of miles distant. The pressing question is whether more nations will join this escalation. Countries heavily dependent on US or Chinese exports may